Welcome to the Gigging Success Podcast. And now, here's your host, Brad Lazarus.
Welcome to the Gigging Success Podcast, where you'll discover the tactics and strategies of some of the world's most successful cover bands that will help you fast-track your way to more of those better paid gigs you deserve. So welcome, everyone, and I'm going to try something a little bit different and new for the next up-and-coming series of podcasts. I'm still going to stick with the interviews with musicians that run cover bands, because I know you really like that stuff, and people email me all the time to tell me how much they're enjoying those. So we're going to stick with those. I'm going to try and aim for 2 every month. There you go. I've said that publicly, so I now have to stick to it. But one of the other ideas I had was to actually bring in a co-presenter. So for a couple of podcasts every month, again, I've said it, so I have to be accountable to that, I have decided to bring in Graham Nash from the cover band Daft. And we are going to just talk, really just talk through some points and some, just to have a chat over some points, cover band marketing style points. The two of us have been talking a lot over the last few months since I met Graham and since he's been on the podcast. And, you know, we talk quite a lot about cover band marketing and all the things that he's doing and I'm doing. And he's currently running as well as running Daft, he has also recently launched his new agency, which he's going to tell us a little bit about. So he's actually with me now. Graham, how you doing?
Very, very good. Thank you. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Well, listen, I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be good. It's a bit of an experiment for both of us. So tell us a little bit about, obviously, people can go and have a listen to your podcast, which we did. I'll have to find out which one it is. But if you go onto the website and you just search for Graham, you'll find Graham's the podcast that I interviewed him for. And that talk, you know, you go into your story in that. So we won't go too deep into that, but basically you were in sales, you've gone full time with the band, and also now you've got a new project. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the agency you mentioned is called Class, Live Bands and Entertainers, and it was the next step for me in what was actually quite a long period of work anyway. So really, since the formation of Daft 10 or 15 years ago, we grew really well and handled a bunch of inquiries that we couldn't handle. I think I've got quite a very similar backstory to a lot of agencies and probably a lot of people in sort of vocational lines of work. But the workload that we were fielding sort of warranted the formation of a network between other bands and musicians that I knew, to help distribute some of those inquiries. I think it's quite good to offer clients a qualified alternative. I like it. If I phone a business looking for a product or service and I can't get it from them, my next question is nearly always, do you recommend anybody else that might be able to help here? So it's kind of that sort of theory. And that went back quite a long time ago, probably around the time Facebook was beginning to enter our daily lives. And we started a referral group, and I invited, it was a closed group, and I invited a bunch of people I knew into it, and we began to post up inquiries and share leads that were being generated. And it didn't really stop. It got busier and busier and busier. So I formed a small agency, just something unpromoted. I didn't really talk about it very much, but good clients who I wanted to help, I would point them in the direction of acts that were, usually very similar to my own, that would do them just as good a job. But I tried to offer a bit of additional value. So I would be there to escort the client through the process and help them put their booking together and put their event together in the longer term. Then the event would happen, and the usual follow-up and feedback procedure would take place as well. And that all kind of continued to gain momentum over a few years. So ultimately there came a day where you had to decide, what are we going to do with this? Are we just going to keep it small and, sort of behind the scenes, or should we actually just come out the woodwork and stand proudly on the internet? And try and do a good job for as many people as we can. And that's really where Class came from. So Class is now fully up and running, growing, establishing itself more and more. New company, but with 10 years of history behind it.
And you're primarily dealing with cover bands at this stage, aren't you?
Yeah, I think we can see years down the road areas that we could diversify into. Entertainment is a very, very broad category. My expertise and my knowledge is around cover bands, parties, events, weddings, functions, where we want to put an act in place that's going to have an impact and create something for the client that's memorable. So I think right now, focus on what we know, focus on what we're good at, keep it together, and focus on the customer. That's really what our main objective is at the moment.
Cool. Excellent. Well, listen, good luck with it. Now we've got you talking about the marketing for an agency as well as a cover band. So there's a bit of a double whammy there. And I do a similar thing, obviously, for my management company, LM2 Entertainment. In essence, it is an agency, although a boutique one, because we look after acts exclusively, and I do a lot of marketing LM2 Entertainment to the industry as well. So, well, look, let's kind of get straight into what we're going to talk about today. Is the 3 simple steps to more cover band bookings. We're going to pick a topic, a problem that you guys out there are having and what we're going to do is look to see if we can help you solve those problems by talking through some of the points and the solutions to them. So our first one is 3 simple steps to more cover band booking. So I know what we'll do is I'll kind of work through each of these and we can just chat and talk around them. So the first one for me is stand out, be different, and find something that sets you apart. I talk a lot about this thing that I call the cover band commoditization trap. And I see this so often. So many cover bands are out there and they really are just carbon copies of each other. There's nothing that is setting the one band apart from another band. So the resulting fact is that when clients are looking to book you for their event, you're actually leaving them. If there's nothing that is differentiating you from your competition, you're really leaving the client with no other option to make their decision based on what you cost. And when you get into that trap, you end up having the only way you can compete is to be cheaper. Now, when you are cheaper, you end up in this kind of race to the bottom, if you like. And that really, I see that causes a lot of, heartache and resentment towards the client as well, that you feel as though you should be being kind of paid more for the event that you're on, but actually you haven't demonstrated to the client why they should be paying you more. I'm not sure if have you got a take on that at all, Graham?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting from the agency perspective because we take a 2 main approaches. Sometimes we identify bands that we are very keen to work with, but if that situation arises, it's because I've seen something within that act, or I've got some experience with that act directly or indirectly that leads me to believe there is something I can do for them. In respect of marketing, promotion, and obtaining business for them. The other angle is that bands apply to the agency through the artist sign-up procedure. They can fill in a form at any time and provide some info for us to review. And we can not make it, it's not as simple as saying yes or no. It's a case of looking at the act and seeing, is there a space in the roster for this band? Is there something that will bring value to the agency and thus to the customer? If we take that band on. So that's, what you're saying there is exactly what we're actually looking for. We don't look for bands who can just play songs because, frankly, that's the least you should be able to expect from any act that's out there. And you would expect to see a band being able to perform a range of material naturally. What you're looking for in actual fact is those differences. What is it that's unique about the band? What is it that's special about the band? What is it that I can really turn towards a customer with and convince them that this is the right act for them. And that's where you start to look at some of the detail of the band. Did you want to go into some of that detail now, or you just wanting to?
Well, I mean, one of the things, yeah, I mean, we don't want to go into too much kind of finer. We've got another couple of points to kind of go through. I don't want to, go on too long to a certain extent, but we will go into some of that. Yeah, but I mean, one of the things which, there's a kind of like a simple test which I like to do. Now, whether that be for a band or any kind of product that you're trying to create, anything you're trying to create and sell, and it's based around the idea of positioning. So if you take what it is that you're looking to try and sell to the client, in this case, the cover band, ask yourself the question: what is it that the client is really? What is it that the client is going to think about when they look at what it is that I'm offering? What is it that what's going on in their head? How do they perceive what it is that I've got to offer them? Because if they're just looking at it thinking, well, this is just the same, you've got work to do. If you're just like everybody else, you have work to do. You've got to find a way of differentiating yourself. Because the worst thing that can happen is that they don't book a band at all because they don't see the value in it. The worst thing that can happen is they go and book a DJ, because they're just not seeing that there's anything out there for them. So that's kind of a little bit of advanced kind of, positioning style kind of technique, or just a test, if you like, on how to gauge whether you have got a point of differentiation. So what other kind of areas were you going to talk about there, Graham?
You look for those USPs, is there a particularly shining member of the act? I mean, some bands are blessed with ridiculously good, outstanding front people. They're not always the greatest singers necessarily, but they're amazing performers. Sometimes they have beautiful voices and are amazing singers, but they may be lacking some of that charisma that a lot of clients look for in an act when they're going to make a booking. So that kind of detail, you look for some of the key members of the band, who is going to really make that performance memorable for the client, who's going to really deliver something special.
And I think on that point, if you have a standout star in the band, you have to make them stand out.
Yeah, you should do. They are ultimately often the case, and potentially the one and only reason that an artist may be. But we've had that experience before, where certain bands are booked purely on the strength of the singer. You will get a specific instruction from the client. We want to have this band, but can you confirm it will be that person singing on the night? So that can be, a very sensitive point sometimes. Bands are very used to the depth scenario. It's a fact of life that illnesses and force majeure events can crop up that beyond somebody's control can affect their availability. But we have to be very careful about that. If clients have made decisions based on standout members of the act, and this is all the more important if you venture into the world of celebrity, but certainly with cover bands, if there are standout members, they're often identified by clients, they're seen, they're chosen because of that, and bands should absolutely do all they can to bring that member to the forefront. It's not always the singer. Sometimes it's an amazing guitarist, somebody with real charisma, real entertainment value, that can turn a performance into a real concert.
Yeah. On that point, it's interesting because one of my bands, we have about 3 or 4 different singers for the one band. So what we've had to really concentrate on is creating a concept and a brand for that band that's bigger than any person in it.
Yeah.
So I've always thought of it a little bit like a kind of a football team that has a star player, and as soon as that star player starts to kind of dominate, the club needs to kind of rally round and become bigger than that player and make sure that player is kind of almost put in their place. So it's kind of the same with the band in the sense that, no individual in it is going to ultimately be bigger than the brand of the band. Although having said that, we still get people that want particular vocalists, and we do what we can to make sure that we get them in, but we absolutely can't. We never guarantee.
No, well, that's the thing, and many bands out there, particularly good bands at higher levels, can often be session based. You'll find that lineups are not necessarily the same from gig to gig, day to day, week to week. There can be variables. If that's the case, then that's made very clear. You know, we that's something that will be said to the client straight away, that if there isn't a guarantee possible to be offered, obviously that is mentioned. But it's worth noting that many cover bands out there are groups of friends. They're people that have maybe grown up together, live locally, known each other a long time. They're just getting out there doing gigs, doing good gigs, and performing for people. And that's great. And in those circumstances, they may not have such quick and easy access to alternative performers. It's not too bad, I have to say, but occasionally it can be a bit of a problem. So it's just something to note, really. I think a good place to start is always to, stand in front of your band, turn around, take a look at it and see what is actually the greatest thing about this act. It's a question we ask in the sign-up process, actually. It's not designed to be funny or difficult or just a random question. We ask the question, what's great about your act? Because we're looking for what the act believes to be its strongest selling point, its strongest, most marketable feature. Could be a singer, could be a guitarist, could be a range of music that they play, could be anything. But we want to know just as much as a client would want to know exactly what the true strengths of the band actually are. So if you don't know what they are today, if you're not entirely sure, if you just consider yourself a bunch of 4 or 5 guys or girls who perform live songs, try thinking about it that way. Look at what's really unique about you, or what you can actually make unique about you.
Yeah. And I think if you really sit down and think about it and brainstorm some ideas, get a piece of paper out, brainstorm some ideas, just let it kind of flow. I think you'll find some interesting stuff come out. But you do need to give it the time, the headspace.
And sometimes also, a few gigs in, you may find that your fan base tells you, or existing customers tell you. You might find that there's a consistent point in feedback. It doesn't always have to relate to one individual physical member. It might just be that the band is just really good at getting a party started and getting people into a frame of mind. Bands don't all have to be the same. Not every band has to go out there and cause a bunch of fist bumping in the air all night long. Some bands have a very different approach, playing different styles of music, but you may find that it's perhaps a section of your set that you do particularly well, or something that really suits you as a band that works really well. Doesn't have to be just the singer, just the guitarist. It could be more of a collective thing about the act. Either way, the concept of having that strong, unique selling point about your act that you can really focus on is definitely.
I mean, I like this idea. I've always talked about this idea of getting kind of 2 worlds to collide together to create a big kind of talking point. There's which again, if you can create a talking point about your act, you then people talk about you, and then with their friends, and then you become referable. One of the ideas, for example, is, there's a few of them, but if you think about Paul Anka, Frank Sinatra's songwriter, I think he was, and producer, he did an album called Rock Swings. Now, you wouldn't, and this was before it became quite mainstream to do swing versions of rock songs, but at the time, it was quite new, and it was a massive talking point at the time. It was a real kind of quite a groundbreaking thing, and I think that album did very well. And I always look at Metallica, and they recorded, I think it was the Black Album, they recorded that with a symphony orchestra. So my point there is that if you can find something that your band, that juxtaposes 2 worlds, if you like, and they kind of collide, they become something that enables you to be talked about, to be different, to stand out from.
Well, interestingly, we have fielded some inquiries recently from clients who are looking for the folk kind of sound. So let's imagine something like Mumford and Sons.
Yeah.
So that kind of folky approach, even potentially with things like Kaylee, but where the band also has that rocky party edge to it. I had one client in particular who wanted that style of delivery, so the folky sort of fiddles, accordions, banjos, that kind of setup in the band, but wanted the act to be playing Lady Gaga and the Killers and things like this. So one style of music traditionally not associated, or one style of instruments and lineup not traditionally associated with perhaps the Killers, but a fusion of that folk look, that folk sound with contemporary sort of pop material. There are a couple of bands out there doing that, and by my understanding, they're not short of any work at the moment. That kind of interesting fusion is like you say, often very popular.
Excellent. Okay, let's move on to the next simple step to more cover band booking, should we?
Yeah.
Create a promo show reel. That's an advert for your band. This is one of my pet ones, if that makes any sense. Do you want to know what I mean by that?
I think I do, but perhaps let's clarify for our listening friends.
Well, for me, there's two types of show. Well, the main show reels, to have a video show reel, I think is an absolute must now. I think it's very, very difficult to compete at a level for the premium gigs if you don't have a show reel. You can't rely on people to have seen you to then go and book you. You can't scale up your bookings by not having something that people can see your performance on. So it's the big calling card now. So it's an absolute necessity for me. And I think you almost need to go, if you really want to up your game, you almost need to take it to the next level and not just have a promo show reel, a video show reel. You actually need that show reel to sell your band. To most bands out there, the majority of bands out there, if they do have a show reel, I literally just, it's 5-10 minutes long, and it's, maybe a minute and a half of a selection of different songs. And it's boring to watch unless you are this incredible act that, as we were talking about before, that has this, amazing, engaging front person, and you come and you just grab people from out of the screen, then you're going to need to do something more to keep people engaged watching. Because I've looked in the early days, I looked at my analytics on YouTube, because you can find out how engaged people are in terms of watching your videos. And most people will not watch past about a minute if you're lucky. Yeah. So the key for me is, how can you keep them engaged on your show reel for longer so that you can actually market to them and sell to them and actually persuade them that you are the right choice for them. And there's a various different types of strategies and tactics that I think you can employ to make that happen. But I don't know, what is that what you thought I was going to say?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, videos, for at least the last couple of years, have become beyond essential. I mean, you won't often know, you won't even have the chance to compete in some cases, because I am more than aware that some clients won't even now consider you unless there's a video to look at. They can land on your website, they can like everything they see and read from a content perspective, but ultimately they're looking for that video that they can watch and get that. We all know the old adage that a picture speaks 1,000 words, or a video must speak 1,000,000, because they will have all of their questions answered typically within a few seconds of watching a video. First impressions take a matter of seconds to be formed, and that's what happens in the same process that a client goes through when they're reviewing band videos. So without a shadow of a doubt, the interesting thing for me really has been the huge variety of ways that you can construct a video. You could make it, well, I've seen various bands do their videos. Some of them film a song, it's just a 3-minute 43-second video of an actual song from start to finish. It could be live, it could be staged, it could be live audio, but it could be dubbed audio, it could be a recorded MP3 over a live performance. You can have compilation videos where you've got a mixture of 30 seconds of a song track. Then it flips to an interview with one of the band members where they talk to you, talking head scenario about who they are, what they do, and so on. Switching back again to another clip from a song. So you get this kind of compilation effect, almost like a quick infomercial, if you like, about your act. So there are quite literally dozens and dozens of ways that you can put a video together, and ultimately you're trying to do it as well in no more than a couple of minutes. There's not really a huge amount of point putting a 10-minute video together. Well,
I mean, my take on that is I agree. I think a promo show reel should be about 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be lucky for anybody to watch longer than that. And I think what I've been doing lately is then using some supporting video. So you're not going to convince somebody to book your band on the basis of 1 2-minute video. They're going to want to then go and see some other stuff around you and that stuff on your website, whether it's your about page, your repertoire list, all those other elements that support your argument, if you like, to persuade that person to book you. But one of the things that I found quite useful is to have a longer supporting video. So when you're recording your promo video, you then also and you've edited that down to 2.5 minutes, you can then put together a 10-minute video, which almost is you playing live. So I call it the further viewing video. So this is the people that are interested in the 2.5 minute. They go, yeah, this is interest. This has piqued my interest. I want to see a little bit more. Now, the next thing that most people think when they want to see a bit more is I want to go and see the band live. Now, it's not always possible for people to go and see you live, whether that mainly because they don't have the time or because you're not playing on a date that's convenient for them, or you don't even have a gig. So actually having a longer video with your out-and-out performance on it, still well produced where you can possibly do it. But by that point, they've bought into you. So they're watching this 10, 15, maybe even 20-minute video of your performance as if they're at the gig. And I think that is pairing those together, I think, is a really powerful.
Well, actually, I completely agree. Thinking about it in that respect, it's a bit like the minute version or 2-minute version is kind of like the trailer for the big act, and then you've got the 10-minute mini documentary about the band where you can go into a bit more detail and show a bit more content. But you are right. In any other context, if I'm buying a product, forget bands and entertainment for a minute. If I'm buying a product, I may well watch its promotional video. Then, of course, you go looking for reviews, you go looking for additional information about the product that's going to, or the service that's going to help you make your buying decision. But that video will ultimately be, I would suggest, a very large percentage of the decision-making process. If they don't like what they see on the video, nothing else is going to happen afterwards. If they can't see a video, the chances are nothing else is going to happen afterwards.
Yeah, they're not moving forward at that point.
But
yeah,
if they are seeing something good, if you capture them in that 2.5 minute trailer type approach to a video, but then you've got a sister video to it that's going to give more detail of the act. Yeah, I like that idea a lot. You'd think that, technology these days would make it very easy for people to do this kind of thing. Sometimes it's easier said than done, but right now, today, if you're the kind of band that are wanting to push themselves through into better paying gigs, securing, more corporate market work, I think this is something you really need to look at very closely.
No, I think you do. And I think even if you've got some footage now, I think there's a bunch of different ways that you can really kind of put that footage on steroids, and turn it into a real powerful sales tool for you. You can do you can re-edit it, and it shouldn't cost a lot to re-edit. You can go and outsource this stuff relatively easily. Go to Odesk or go to Elance. You can go and find somebody in the Philippines to go and do this stuff for you. Just have a clear idea of the kind of thing that you want. You can put screen annotations on there, so you can use it to display use that real estate on screen, and while you've got that person's attention, you give them something to engage with. You can put testimonials on there. What type of repertoire do you cover? What types of events do you play at? What kind of band lineups are there? So really kind of use that promo show. Use that 2 minutes as effectively as you can to sell your act. That's what it comes down to, you know. And people don't. I always think people don't really want to be sold to, but they really do want to buy from you. And I know you're an ex-sales guy, so you've probably heard that cliche a million times, haven't you, Graham? But it is so true, you know. And if you can put these messages and communicate what it is that you're all about in your promo show reel, these are all the things that you might have said on the phone to them. But when you say it on the phone to them, they almost feel like they're being sold to. But when they've found your video and they're watching it for themselves, and you're putting these messages up there, and you're a great band, and you know the production quality is great, and you're performing well, they feel like they've discovered you. They feel like they're making their own decision as to whether to book you or not. And I think that's a really powerful thing. So
completely agree. Completely, yeah, for sure.
Excellent. Okay, now let's go on to point 3, which is collect testimonials of all types and show them everywhere. So this is basically comes down to what you say about yourself isn't a fifth. I can't think of a fraction lower than the fifth. As powerful as what other people say about you. So this comes under, and testimonials are other people's recommendations of what you are and what you can do for people. It's kind of living proof. It's absolute kind of credibility that you say what you can do, if that makes sense. So it comes under this kind of banner of social proof. And social proof is people follow the herd effectively. They feel safe when other people are making the same decisions that they're about to make. It makes them feel good to make that decision. So a simple example of a social proof in real life is if you walk past a restaurant and there's a long queue outside, you know, and you compare that to a restaurant where there's nobody in it, you're going to probably not go to the restaurant with no one in it, and you're going to stand in the queue, or at least you're going to make a note of that restaurant and probably come back another day, because all those people in that line are proof in your subconscious that this restaurant is the place to go. So in terms of the kinds of testimonials that you can use, I mean, literally kind of everything from written notes from your clients. You can get them to send you emails, and then you can put those up on your website, or I like to scan them and put them up because I think they look real. But the most powerful type of testimonial, again, we're going back to video, is the video testimonial. And actually getting people, guests, clients, actually on camera telling you how, and telling your prospective clients how fantastic you are, and not just how great you are, but why you were so great. And there's various different kind of tactics that you can use to extract more interesting feedback from those people that you're interviewing for your testimonials. So that's my take on testimonials. I don't know what...
Yeah, for sure. So testimonials have always been a very important aspect of our band, clearly of our general marketing. We've got a page dedicated to testimonials, as many do, on our website, but we've got loads and loads of them up there now, probably too many in fact, but I can't help but feel that, you know, I like the record being up there of all the times people have gone out of their way to you know, put finger to keyboard and drop us a note. One thing that I think we've done that's helped quite a lot is to assist the user in providing the testimonial. And I think that's just generally quite a good rule to live by anyway. If you want something from somebody, don't make it hard for them. You know, don't just ask them to drop you an email, because you'll end up with all sorts of different things, sizes, details, and different types of content. I think a nice way of doing it is to use services like SurveyMonkey, for example, where with a free account, you can create up to a 10 question survey. You don't have to use 10 questions, but you can create a form, essentially. You can direct the customer to provide specific feedback about what you actually want the feedback on. So you could structure a question: how did you find our service? How would you rate our performance? What did you like in particular about the band? You can ask whatever question you want. But if you provide it in a form context, and following the event, and when I say following the event, I mean the next day, not the following week or a few days later, but the next day, even when you get home from the gig, send them the link to the survey form, or you can sometimes send it directly from the tool or the service itself. And most customers will fill that in. Most are usually very happy with the service that they've had and the experience they've had less than 24 hours ago.
I think that, sorry to jump in, but I think the real kind of key to that is to frame it as wanting feedback, not wanting a testimonial. So if you tell them, look, I'm looking for feedback, and you are looking for a testimonial, you want a glowing review from them. But if you say, look, can you send me a testimonial? And even, it somehow kind of subconsciously is a little bit kind of self-serving, isn't it? Well, whereas if you turn around and say, listen, we're always looking to improve. Can you answer these questions and give us some feedback about the job we did for you?
Well, that's exactly what it's all about, and that's why I quite like the survey style approach. It's not saying, please give us your testimonial. It's a case of being able to ask probative, very specific questions, and once you get the answers to those questions, you can combine a testimonial out of that, even if it's just one sentence, or it may be a whole paragraph. So I think that's something worth noting. SurveyMonkey, I believe it's surveymonkey.com.
I think you can get 5. I think you can ask 5 questions for free.
I think it's 10.
Oh, is it 10? Right, there you go. Well, that's more than enough, isn't it?
You can actually use all different types of question types.
One thing I would say as well is if you ask these questions at the end of your survey, if you're going to go down the survey route, and you don't have to go down the survey route, you can just send these questions in an email and ask them to reply back. But if you're going to go down either of those two routes, because they're kind of similar, just with a slightly different medium, if they come back to you with this absolutely kind of glowing reference and glowing amounts of feedback for you, pick up the phone and ask them if you could come and interview them on camera. Because that's a really powerful. I found that to be a really powerful thing, to actually do a face-to-face 10 interview with previous clients that have been really delighted with the band, and ask them specific questions, which are going to be questions that prospective clients are going to want answers to, and you use that video testimonial to really to overcome the objections of prospective clients that are otherwise sitting on the fence.
Absolutely. All of this content is there to solidify you as a reputable, bookable act that is ultimately going to do a good job. We can't ever get away from the fact that, a lot of band decisions or client decisions towards bands are subjective. So, regardless of some of this material, you still one day might not be quite the right band for them. But what you can do to help yourself is what we're saying here, is provide the client with quick, easy, accessible content that will ultimately give them that sense of confidence that if they are looking at you as a chosen act because of what you play, because of where you're located, because of your price point and all these other bits, if you've got that additional material over and above another band, I think the decision's almost made in your favour straight away. So, for sure.
Yeah. It's you almost I always think you kind of need to overwhelm them with positivity.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's not, you shouldn't feel bad about doing it either. You are entitled to represent yourself in the truest light possible. And if your clients are regularly giving you this feedback, don't keep it to yourself. Let everybody else know about it. It's great.
Yeah.
Perception, not just in the purchaser's mind, but within other bands on the circuit as well. You know, they will see that and look up to that and respect that, and in many cases want to replicate that. We've all got it. Everybody's got the ability to present themselves well. You know, we take a camera to every one of our gigs. It's just a little compact camera, nothing special. We put it on a low light sensitivity setting so that we can get some nice colors in the shots and things like this. But it's like many cameras these days, many phones, it's got a recording capability, a high definition recording capability. There's always 5 minutes at the end of every wedding or every function where you can, while the band are packing up, you can pop to the side with the client, holding the camera, and ask for a 2-minute conversation about how the evening's just gone. At the event itself, if you can do it there, why not? You know, I think you should always try to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, all good stuff. We've hit 40 minutes. I want to try and keep these down to about 30 minutes, but because this was our first one, you know, what the hell? So I know, there you go. So we're going to kind of wrap up there. I just want to let everybody know that if you want to go and download Cover Band Essentials, you can do that. You can get down to giggingsuccess.com/CBE, where you can go and get 5 killer tactics and strategies to get more gigs for your band and crush your competition in the current economy. So go and have a look out for that. Anything else, Graham? We're going to wrap up? We're done?
So much more that it's not worth mentioning at the moment, I suppose.
Okay. Listen, thank you. I think we'd have to say that was a bit of a success, and we'll do it again very soon.
Look forward to it.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.